A lot of people do think like, oh, like this guy has no life. He just sits down and studies all day. But in like reality, I'm like never home. I'm always out with my friends.
Is there anything that's worrying you about Colombia?
One really important thing that I know I need to like keep with me when I go to Colombia is my faith. I know that my faith is gonna keep me true to who I am at my core. Obviously, it's not an easy balance between like you were saying, pushing your academics and trying to balance it with your faith, but I do think it's definitely possible.
Did your parents put pressure on you academically to get to where you are?
I won't lie, throughout like my earlier years, trying to make my parents happy was like my primary motivator throughout school. Like my mom always tells me, like if you can put your mind to it, it's always possible.
What is one part of your character that you thought Colombia looked at as attractive?
I actually wrote about this in one of my college essays. Like one of the main shifts I had throughout high school was realization that like when you start doing things for self-betterment, it's more satisfying. Now I started to do things for myself rather than to like make other people proud of me.
If you want to give students a blueprint, they just really want good grades and they want to have a good social life.
The most important thing,
Hassan is the youngest guest that I've ever had on the show so far. He's 17 years old. He just got accepted to Columbia University, an Ivy League school with a 5.0 GPA. So I personally never even knew that a 5.0 GPA was even possible. But it is, and he achieved that. So I was curious about multiple things. The environment at home, his mentality at 17 years old, what kind of lifestyle he has. When you see someone at that age with the academic success, you'd really associate him with being secluded, sitting in his room studying all day. Or you would think that his parents are on top of his head, pushing him and just pressuring him out of his mind for him to achieve that type of academic success. And I wanted to know what his plan was for his future. You guys have requested to have some of the younger generation on the podcast to listen to what they have to say. Hassan's a great example. That type of academic success is something that we all wanted to get when we were in high school. And if you're in high school right now, this is the type of success that in an ideal situation you would want to have. And of course, thank you for tuning in, for taking time out of your day and giving this podcast a listen. If you're new here and you enjoy what you hear, subscribe to the podcast, like this episode, let me know what you think in the comments. And with that being said, let's get the show started.
Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى
طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب
مدينة تونس العربية.
Hassan, the man that got all our parents upset at us. Welcome to the podcast. Hassan, the way I usually start this off is self-introduction on your part. And I always like to, I can say, Hassan's here with us. He just got accepted to Columbia. He got a 5.0 GPA. All that's nice, but I'm more interested in how you see yourself. So when you look in the mirror, who do you see? As a personal reflection.
So, so my name is Hassan. I was born in I was born in Brooklyn, in New York, and I lived in Queens for 7 years of my life. I like to think I'm someone who cares a lot about my friends, especially, and my parents, and I really attribute most of my success to the people around me rather than myself. I feel like the people around me are really what made me who I was and kind of shaped me to be who I am today.
Interesting. Friends and family. Why do you think that's important? Why do you not attribute that to yourself?
So I just think that, I've always been told you are who you hang out around with, and I actually truly believe that's a really important thing. My friends have always just been great motivators for me in my life, and also my parents, especially my mom, has been ever since I was a child, she was always pushing me to not pushing me, encouraging me to be better than I was. She never really they weren't really hard on me when I was little, or even now they're not even that hard on me. They're always just want me to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So
the thing with friends is, and you're right, we hear this a lot. You are who you hang out with. You are who your friends are. Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Too many of these conversations. But in reality, in your perspective, you see how they say, if you want to be a millionaire, you make your friends millionaires or whatever. How are your friends like? Are they all like you academically on the same level? Or 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 what do you mean by saying your friends push you and they're your biggest motivators?
So, you know, when they say like surround yourself with millionaires to become one, I don't really agree with that philosophy. So not I wouldn't say all my friends are as academically successful as me, but the most important thing that I look for in a friend is like the traits and the characteristics that make up their character. And I think that those specific traits are kind of like what rub off on each other. Uh, like usually like the selflessness, like that's one really big thing a lot of my friends have. They're all very selfless. And I think all of them are like pretty like rational thinkers. They make sure they think about their decisions before. None of them really make any quick like on the spot decisions as much. Uh, yeah.
You're 17 still, you know? So for a lot of us, or for most people, you'd be surprised that they might be in their mid-20s, early 30s, and they still don't have like this group of friends. They still struggle to build relationships, long-term relationships. And when we say relationships, a lot of people want to associate that with like your partner, your spouse, but your friends are as an important relationship as you can get in life. So how do you find friends like that very early?
So that's like a question that's very, very hard for me to answer. Like a lot of people have always told me that I'm just very naturally out there, very naturally extroverted, and I usually just like will randomly just go spark up conversations with people, like even if I don't know them. So it's kind of that's how I meet a lot of people, make a lot of friends, just like through random interactions or just through just quick experiences with them.
So how do you filter them out after you get to know them? You went and sparked the conversation. How do you filter out, is this going to be a friend that's worthy of me spending my time with?
I just try to see around like the actions they take, because anyone could really say whatever they want, but I feel like actions are truly what define a person. So by hanging around that person longer, I'll be able to see like more of the actions they take, and that's kind of like it kind of gives me a good judge of their character.
What are the actions that you look for?
Usually just not they don't one really big thing is I don't like people who are like extremely like egotistical. That's like one really big like pet peeve of mine. People who try to like put others down. That's like the biggest thing. When I see people trying to like help bring others up, like if whenever they're like down, that's one of like the biggest things I look for.
How can you get a 5.0 GPA? Because most people were like, we didn't even know that a 5.0 GPA existed. I didn't even know that existed.
So when you take either AP classes or do enrollment classes, they like boost your GPA a little bit. So for all 6 of my classes, I just took AP classes, which would boost my GPA up to a 5.0, because those classes are graded on a 5.0 scale rather than a 4.0 scale.
Okay. So just simple as that. Take weighted classes, which are AP classes, and then you'll... And why is it that less than 1% of students get a 5.0 GPA? Because what you said makes it sound pretty simple. All right, we'll take these 6 classes that are weighted, and you might hear more people get a 5.0 GPA than.
Yeah, I really do make it sound simple. Like you could really just take these classes, but the truth is like these classes require a lot of time and effort. Like so, in sophomore year, I took AP chemistry, which took up like sometimes up to like 3 hours a day for some like really intensive weeks. So like these classes are also like really big time commitments, which I don't see a lot of the kids, especially like at my school, are like willing to commit to. And if you don't really put in the time, like it's very easy to fall behind in those classes and to like slip your grade.
Was it by design that you knew going into high school you wanted to try to reach for a 5.0 GPA and probably get into an Ivy League school?
I didn't really know that 5.0 existed when I went into high school.
Okay.
So I go to a program called DCMST. It's the Dearborn Heights campus, where I go there for half of my day. And a lot of the teachers there kind of guided us towards stuff we needed for success in high school. Obviously, my goal has always been an Ivy League ever since middle school. Just wasn't really expecting it.
Were you always a straight A student?
No, my transcript doesn't have straight A's. I have some A minuses and a B on my transcript.
Okay.
But throughout like middle school.
But like, I mean, since you were young, you were always pretty good academically.
And so in New York, I went to elementary there, and they have three, like, they sort the kids into three different types of classes depending on like their like academics. So like for my first 3 years of elementary school, I was placed into the highest level class, and then that kind of translated when I moved here. They didn't really have any system like that, but my teachers, which I'm really grateful for, they always like would give me sometimes different work, like that was a little bit more challenging. They would give me books that would, you know, challenge me more than the average book, like the average book that people would be reading.
The thing is, I'm 9 years graduated from high school now. And I remember during those times, peer pressure is a big thing. You know, it's not really cool for you to keep getting straight A's or for you to be that academically successful, right? Like you're in class, It's not like the students look at the person who got the A in resentment when they got like a B or a C, or maybe they study a lot and you make it look effortless, for example, even though I'm sure that you do put in a lot of work to reach that. But the people with the highest grades were never looked at, or those are the cool kids. Those are the people that we want to be in our circle, we want to be around. Did you feel that in high school?
To be honest, sometimes I would, but a majority of the time I was kind of put into like especially at DCMST and then these like AP classes that I took at Fordson, that a lot of the people don't really look at academic success as like uncool, because in reality there's really like nothing uncool about like putting effort in to school and like actually caring about your future. I never like those people that would see it, they would be I would just try to stay away from them, because I knew that like they're not going to give me anything of value to my life other than just negativity.
But do you see it at that in the moment, or do you kind of want to fit in with others? Because that's what we all wanted to do, you know? Yeah. We wanted to get nice clothes. We wanted to fit in with our peers. There was always some, you know, you can, even at that young age, you can analyze the room really quickly. You know who's the person that's more charismatic, that everyone's attracted to, and that's kind of who you want your friend to be. That's who you want to get close to, because that's where everyone else is going, you know? Did you ever find yourself gravitating towards that?
To be honest, not really. I never really looked at people and said like immediately like, oh, this guy looks cool, I want to be his friend. I'm more of like, I'm not gonna say I'm selective with my friends, because I would say that like I'm an extremely like extroverted person. I just try to be friends with like as many people as I could. Obviously not like super close friends, but like I never really found myself in a situation where I was like gravitating towards a specific person in the room trying to like look cooler. It's not really something I find like important.
Okay. So even like with all the conversations about school isn't that important and you can be successful without school, have you heard that?
100%.
Yeah. Like does that get into your head at one point, knowing that you said at a young age you knew that you wanted to shoot for Ivy League, but then you grow up and social media is influential, you know? What you hear online is influential, whether we like it or not, whether you're 60 years old, whether you're 10 years old. When you consume, you're going to get influenced. And it so happens to be that a lot of these very successful people are the people that have these platforms. And a lot of people that have these platforms didn't go to school as like...
the traditional route.
Exactly. So when you consume stuff like that, does that make you doubt? Because at the end of the day, you want to be successful as well.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make you doubt the path that you're choosing?
Obviously, I've had like thoughts about stuff like that, but I've always tried to stay pretty strong-willed about like my like dreams and aspirations in life. And I know that with kind of what I want to be, I know that school is realistically the only option for me. Obviously, it's not the same path for everyone. Some people could be extremely wealthy and successful. I mean, if you even want to define like success with wealth, which I don't really agree with, but I think that there's like there's all hundreds of different paths for people to take. I don't think that school is the only path, but I know like through my own like self-reflection, I know that school is probably the best path for me.
What are your dreams and aspirations?
So, not really sure what kind of doctor I want to be. I know this sounds like every, Arab kid, their parents tell them like, oh, you should be a doctor. But I truly do think that, being a doctor will allow me to play my part in the world, help people as I can, and also it will allow me to keep that interaction part of my life, since I know that some doctors get to speak to a lot of patients, and keeping that social interaction is also like one really big thing I've wanted in my life. So that's kind of what I'm looking for like, in a career path.
Okay, so a doctor.
Yeah.
That's so you're going for pre-med to Columbia, and what are you planning on studying in pre-med?
So I plan to major in biochemistry, mainly because I found I throughout high school I just found chemistry as like the most it was kind of like the course that changed me the most. That made me start taking school a lot more seriously. Throughout like freshman year, I really didn't like care that much. But then when I hit sophomore year and I took a class like that, it made me realize what kind of like interesting things you can learn, especially like about the world. And I found that mixing some biology with chemistry wouldn't hurt, because biology, I would say, out of like the three sciences, is my weakest.
That's so interesting. What did you learn about the world through chemistry?
It's just how a lot of things work on like molecular level. Like you don't really think about the like types of reactions that go on every second of the day, or like what makes up like human life.
Is there like one piece of information that you like think about and be like, man, like this is fascinating?
To be honest, not one I could think of off the top of my head. I just like whenever I see like quick random things that I can kind of relate back to all the stuff I learned. I also felt this a lot in physics. When I took physics last year, it was kind of like I would look at everything through a physics lens. Like I'd see something falling, I'd just start thinking about like gravity.
Physics is interesting. When you want to choose, because a lot of people can be like, okay, I'm going into college. And I'll speak personally. When I wanted to go, I went to community college, and then I went to Wayne State. And then before that, I studied in Lebanon, and I changed my majors like 7 or 8 times. So I didn't think it was that serious, that, okay, I'll just try and do psychology. And if I didn't like what I was studying, I switched to something else and something else. And it wasn't really, it wasn't that serious. In your situation, when you have to make the decision, you're going into one of the best schools in the world. So do you think a little longer about the career path that you want to take? Because it's not weighted, like your decision and my decision are not weighted the same. I can change my mind, whatever. It doesn't really matter. In your situation, there's a little bit more pressure on choosing the right career path.
I think college in itself is a universal experience. I think it's always a place for exploration. I'm not expecting, like, obviously I have like my goals set for what I want to do in college, but I'm open for change all the time. The main reason I wanted to go to Columbia in specific is like their core curriculum, which allows you to they practically force you to explore other aspects of just other than your major. You get to look into a lot of humanities, and that's something I've always found interesting. I'm not especially this year, I started thinking like I just want to be like 100% sure with like this is what I want to do with my life, and I think that Colombia is gonna provide me with like the resources to really discover what like my passion is.
Who do you have conversations with, if anybody, about that decision? Is it your parents? Is it your friends? Maybe if you like you have a very close friend that maybe like is relatable.
So sometimes I'll talk to my parents about it. I'd ask like, you know, talk to them about like my career in the future and what I really want. Um, Also, I do sometimes speak to my friends about it, but it's not really as much. But
Are your
one main thing is that, especially I like to talk to my teachers about it. I know my teachers, they've been through like, so my parents didn't go to college, and neither of my friends. But so I know my teachers have been through it, and they know exactly like what's gonna happen, and I feel like they give me a lot of great advice when it comes to it.
You guys are probably done with your New Year's resolution lists, and I can bet money that somewhere along that list, there's a fitness related goal. There's a health related goal. Whether it's improving your sleeping schedule or increasing the amount of steps you take per day or losing weight. And to make sure that you're proactive in achieving these goals, to make sure that you're on top of your game. Sometimes you need tools to make sure that you can turn that goal into reality. And Whoop is a fitness wearable that I have on 24/7 that tracks my sleep, tracks my steps, my recovery from my workouts. It tracks the workouts themselves. And it just helps me get a better understanding of my body as a whole throughout the day, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And through tracking all that data, you'll be able to understand what are the things that you're doing wrong and what are the things that you're doing right that are keeping your body in its best shape and in turn making you feel the best. And because you're a listener of this podcast, Whoop actually has an offer for you. When you go to join.whoop.com/notfromhere, you get to try out Whoop for a month for free. And there's no strings attached. If you don't like the product, you can return it and move on with your life. But I know for a fact that when you try Whoop, you're not going to be able to take it off. Just how I couldn't take it off. It's that good. So again, that's join.whoop.com/notfromhere to get started today. And now back to the episode. Are your parents first generation, second?
First gen.
First gen. Okay. So a lot of the first gen didn't really go to college. And now when they look at their kids, they'll be like, yeah, doctor, baba. Like, amal doctor. Become a doctor. And I just thought that maybe they could influence the decision a little bit. But looking towards your teachers is a better way to go about it. But I'm curious, do you look at teachers as someone, their career path at the end of the day wasn't a doctor. They didn't go through those 10 plus years of medical school. Do you consult with doctors maybe? Like, what do you think? How was your experience like? Stuff like that, because in the grand scheme of things, those are the people with the hands-on experience.
Yeah. I've never really gotten the chance to, or I haven't really looked for like those types of people. I mean, we've had like, you know, career fairs at the school where I've got to speak to a lot of different like experts in different professions. Also, I have some friends who are in college currently, like going on the pre-med track. So I sometimes lean to them for advice. I'd like to ask them like how are your like experiences with like all your classes? Is it like is it enjoyable? Do you find like did you lose any of the passion that you had going into it? So
what are some of the answers?
A lot of people say that no, they don't regret it. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, going in expecting minimum like 8 years of school is not really for everyone. But a lot of people have said like through all the work, it's like extremely rewarding. They enjoy it and they meet a lot of interesting and amazing people along the way that makes like a lot of it worth it.
So did you know you wanted to go to Colombia from the beginning, or was there other schools that you had in mind?
So throughout high school, I have been saying like, oh, like I'm going to apply to Colombia. So Colombia, when you apply to colleges, some colleges have like specific like restrictions on like where you can apply. So Colombia has a thing called early decision, which is a binding commitment to the college where when you apply early, if you get in, you have to go. So I really only got the chance to apply to like U of M Ann Arbor and to Columbia. But I did have like other colleges on my list that I was going to apply to. I wanted like Harvard and Yale, like those two. U of M was always a great option for me, especially as a Fordson student, since Fordson offers like some scholarships towards U of M Ann Arbor. But I got into Columbia, so I mean, I might as well take advantage of the school I've always been dreaming about going to.
Right. And you're going alone? Are you moving there alone?
Yeah. So my dad currently he works in New York. So
Okay.
he's in Michigan for 4 days of the week, and he's in New York for the other 3 days of the week.
Okay.
And he works in Queens, so it's like 30 minutes away from Columbia, not even like on a subway, which isn't that bad. So I'll have someone to go with. You know, my dad's gonna be there if I ever need him. But for the most part, I'm moving to New York alone.
Oh, that's a great option though. Having that for most of the week, your dad can be there. That's amazing. Is there anything that's worrying you about Colombia or that move?
Not really. I mean, obviously this whole like everything is slightly like it makes me a little bit anxious. You know, moving to one of the biggest cities in the world by myself at 18, where I you know, you're still really considered a kid at 18. You know, it's not that much of a different life between 17 and 18. But I mean, I know it's gonna be like a new experience, and I know that like I can always have people to lean back on. I know I'm gonna meet new people there. I'm gonna become friends with. So it's just like it's more exciting, it's like a mix of like anxiety and like excitement. So
Is it the name that's giving you anxiety, like the big city name, like you're moving to New York, Columbia, Ivy League, like those words are big. Is it that's giving you the anxiety, or is it like the experience in itself? Because you have to think about the type of people that get accepted to Columbia. If you said that most people didn't know that 5.0 was even a thing. So you go into high school, you have the plan, 6 classes, you take them. 5.0, very hard to do, you get it done. But now you move to a campus where the people that get accepted there are
basically all like that.
So do you start thinking about how can I compete? Because in academia, competitiveness is a thing. It's in a weird way, it's like sports where you have to outperform, you have to get your name out there, all of these things.
So one really good thing about a DCMST, which is like the program I was talking about earlier, is it's kind of put me in that situation already. They take the top students in like the district, and they all put them in like these like 3 classes. So I'm always constantly surrounded by people like that who are like consistently getting around like, you know, like 4.8s and 5.0s. So I'm kind of already used to that. I don't really like to see other people as my competition. I always just try to look at like myself as an individual rather than how I compare to like other people. Also, like another thing is, so something that I realized I've been like taking for granted is that like Dearborn is like kind of a bubble, you know. It's a very, very like unique community, and like it's extremely tight knit. Like it's like the biggest like out of population, and it's like I feel like that's something I know I'm not gonna have that in New York, but it's like something I know I'm probably gonna miss a lot.
Do you lean on that, on the Arab Muslim side?
Definitely. I think that it's like one of the biggest reasons I am who I am today. I have like these people who are like basically they're like me. They're going through like very similar situations, and I know that like I have some sort of like, you know, connection to these people that I'm not gonna really get like outside of Dearborn.
You know, I heard one person talk one time about how these Arab kids or Muslim kids that get accepted into like these big schools go, and then because either the pressure in the moment or just wanting to, like we said before, compete, go strive for bigger, higher, it kind of detaches them from that identity. And then when they leave that school, they're not the same person as they was. They don't feel that strong connection to their peers like before they left. So I just wondered if like the environment there worries you in a way, because when I thought about you moving to Colombia and like how that would be, the first thing I thought was the same thoughts that I got when I moved to America. I was in Lebanon. Also, the people that I was surrounded with were like a certain type, and then I was moving to America, and I first didn't know how Dearborn would be and how close it would be like home, but that worried me. Like, I am going into a new environment, and I really don't want this environment to change me, because that's who you are at your core. Like, you're Hassan Idris. You got into Colombia with a 5.0. You just said a big part of that was your community. This is what made you get there. You know what I mean? And now, does it scare you that being put in this very different scenario with like the top students in the country, maybe in the world, might detach you from that?
So one really, really important thing that I know I need to like keep with me when I go to Colombia is my faith. I know that my faith is going to keep me really like true to who I am at my core. I'm also, one really important thing to me is I'm really don't plan on losing touch with the people I know from here, especially like the best friends I've made along like especially like throughout my whole like time here. Like, I've still hang out with the same friends that I've been hanging out with since I moved here in 3rd grade. You know, I plan to like visit often. It's really not as hard as like you would think to visit from New York to Detroit. It's like a really quick flight.
Mm-hmm.
It's only like an hour and a half. So I mean, especially when I have free time, I plan to like come. And I know that there's gonna be an Arab community at Columbia that I'm gonna be able to connect with, like the people here. So it's always something I look forward to. It's a new experience. I'm gonna get to meet a lot of new type of people that I never really got to meet. And you know, being surrounded with the top students, I feel like it's gonna provide me with like opportunities like no other school could provide me. I think that it's gonna motivate me to just be like the best version of myself. I don't think that it's gonna I don't think it's gonna really worry me that much. I just more think that like it's gonna motivate me.
It's good if you think about it as an advantage, because maybe someone from another small town that maybe isn't that connected to their faith or whatever, or it's not that big of a part in their life, will just move to Colombia, make friends, go out, party, do the things that they were still doing in their hometown. But for you, now you have to keep it in the back of your head that I'm pushing academia all the way, but I'm also like, I'm holding my faith with me, and I'm really not trying to let this go, you know? It's a little harder for you, and people might look at that and be like, that's too difficult. Let me focus on academia. That's what's gonna get me to where I want to be in life. And maybe I'll get back to faith later. Or people, like you just said, I'm gonna hold on to my faith, and I'm gonna allow it for this faith to push me through this journey.
I do truly think that if you put like my mom always tells me, like, if you can put your mind to it, and you know, it's always possible. I think that obviously it's not an easy balance between like you were saying, pushing your academics and trying to balance it with your faith, but I do think it's definitely possible. And I know that if I work hard, like I've always been, that I'll be able to do it.
How are your parents like?
So, my mom always, you know, like she always tries to encourage me, especially like before a test. She'll be like, oh, like take some Zoltan or something, you know, like a lot of like
Yeah.
So my mom always tells me like she know, like her main like way to motivate me. She always tells me like that like she knows I can do it, like she knows that I have it in me to be successful. My dad is the same way. My dad really like instilled a lot of like responsibility within me when I was like little, and those like responsibilities, like one really like responsibility and accountability are like two really big things my dad taught me. To, you know, like the mistakes you make are like they're on yourself, and you need to like learn from them, you need to grow from them. So
Did your parents put pressure on you academically to get to where you are?
um I wouldn't say they put much pressure on me. My parents always like they always told me that like, you know, they always just had full like faith in me. They always believed in me. They always knew that I could do what I wanted to do. And um I won't lie, throughout like my earlier years, you know, trying to make my parents happy was like my probably like my primary motivator throughout school. But through high school, I actually wrote about this in one of my college essays. Like one of the, like the main shifts I had throughout high school was the like realization that like when you start doing things for self betterment, it's more satisfying. Everything I do now in school, it's like my parents, they like throughout high school they realized like, you know, like I'm more motivated than I've ever been. They've taken a little bit of a step back throughout that, like, you know, motivation aspect. They never really like, you know, they never pushed me to do things like I never wanted to do. They never like forced me to like study and like say like, oh, if you don't get good grades, like we're gonna be mad. Like they never ever did that. And I think that like throughout high school, just now I started to do things for myself rather than to like make other people like proud of me, and I find like much more satisfaction in that.
Mm. So it's not the you if you don't get good grades you're in trouble. It's we would love for you to get good grades and we're here to support
100%.
and how you can get there. Because a lot of people would think that because like you said, a lot of parents or like immigrant parents in general, they're very strict on grades, especially first generation. They really want you to do good, and especially for parents that never went to college. I realized that parents kind of want to live their dreams through their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and that it always burns not having that education, and so they always want to see their kids. And some parents overdo it, and it actually
Ends up hurting.
it becomes destructive for the kid. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one younger sister.
Okay, so you're the oldest.
Yeah.
Okay, who do you look up to?
Main thing is, so obviously my dad, he works extremely hard for like us to live the life we live, and like a lot that's a lot of the like the main part is I wanna work hard just like my dad, you know. Also, like a very underrated aspect is throughout school, like you look up to your teachers. Your teachers are like the type of people that shape you into who you are. I really do believe that like teachers can change students' lives. You know, they seeing like how teachers act, the way that they teach, and like the way that they motivate students is like one really important aspect. And I think that with all that, they like they kind of become like role models for us. Like we want to act like them. So I think like when students have like that guidance in their life, they look up to those people, and like especially when those people are like especially great people, like some of the teachers I've had throughout high school, they it leads the students to becoming better people.
What did you write on your personal statement?
So yeah, that was what I was talking about earlier. It was kind of like a shift from, you know, doing things for other people to doing things for myself. That was the main topic of my essay. Also, I kind of like tied it back to like one really big metaphor about a show I liked.
What's the show?
It was Jujutsu Kaisen. It's like
Okay.
some anime. I talked about that in my personal statement, and then I had some like I think the personal statement was a really great part of my application, but I really think that the other essays I wrote were like, I think the essays are like one really big important part of you, because obviously when you think about it, every kid that's like applying to like Harvard or Columbia, like they all have like perfect grades, like high SAT scores, and like all these extracurriculars and stuff like that. But like I think your essays are what they're looking for. They're looking for the characters, and like one thing I saw was that like the number one thing Columbia looks for in your essays is resilience. And I think that's like, I think the essays are what makes you stand apart from like every other candidate.
What is one part of your character that you thought Columbia looked at as attractive to them?
I think, so I really wrote about, like one thing was I wrote about my sense of community. and I think like I wrote about being an Arab and being a Muslim in Dearborn, and I talked about how like my community in Dearborn really like brought me together, and like it brings like the community in Dearborn really brings a lot of people together, and I think that led me to being like I like to think that I'm a really open person. I I spent like the last 3 days, I was at a cafe with my friends, helping them write their college essays. I try to help people when I can. One really big thing for me is like just try to form as many connections as I can. That's one thing I wrote about. Also, a lot of people say that I talk a lot. It's like one thing. Every parent teacher conference I went to, the teachers would be like, "Oh, he's an excellent student, but he talks too much." So I wrote about that in one of my essays. I talked about how I always talk a lot.
Okay, because I think people want to. We have this preconceived notion that 5.0 GPA, very good academically. That means you're introverted actually. That you don't go out. That you're locked up in a room, in a dungeon in the basement, and you just study and write and read all day. So how is that perception different from Hassan's actual life?
So, yeah, a lot of people do think like, oh, like this guy has no life. He just sits down and studies all day. But in like reality, I mean, you could ask my parents. I'm like never home. I'm always out with my friends, and obviously I make time for studying. But most of the time when I do study, especially this year, I spent a lot of time studying outside the house. I'll study at like at the U of M Dearborn Library, or like I'll study at like some a cafe with my friends. I think one really big thing for me is that being around people is like a really big energy boost for me. I never really realized it. Like I used to earlier I used to like always study at home when I needed to study and go out when I wanted to go out. But like realizing that like studying around other people, being around other people, even if I'm like not even speaking to them, just being around other people is like one really big like energy boost for me, and it kind of like has helped me like stay productive. So I'm always out the house. I'm like barely at home.
So that like kind of breaks that notion that I used to tell my parents when they used to tell me like, hey, study more, study more, study more. I used to tell them that, do you want me to not have a life? And I think that's the main excuse that students think that they can't have a life. They won't be able to go out if they want to achieve like these high academic milestones. But how, if you want to give students a blueprint, on how they don't even have to get a 5.0 GPA and get into Columbia. They just really want good grades, and they want to have a good social life. What would you recommend? How would you lay that out for us?
The most important thing I was saying before is like the people you surround yourself with. I have like a lot of my friends, they know when it's time to like lock in, like when we need to like actually work. And it also helps that a lot of my friends have the same classes as me, so like we kind of like have similar workloads. So one really important thing that I wish I told myself earlier is like procrastinating, because when you end up procrastinating, it actually hurts your social life. You would think that like, putting all this stuff for later to leave a lot more time just like go interact with people is like helpful. But like in reality, when you procrastinate, you're like taking a lot of time away, because you're going to be spending more time on that thing than you would like normally. And I think that it's really important to know like to take breaks. I don't think it's I don't think that pushing yourself to like always be the best is like is a good thing. It's gonna put unnecessary stress on you. Just you need to, in the end, you need to be satisfied with yourself, and you need to have the sort of connection with yourself to know that like no matter what like results you produce, you'll be happy. And you'll find that like by thinking that, you'll end up just being like doing better. You need to always like have a open mindset going into all these things. One thing is if you like one really important thing, like if you're like a 10th grader right now, go get your license. Your license was the biggest changer for me, because I was able to drive around, and it's you have a lot more options for studying. You don't have to don't think that you have to always like study at home. You can always study with other people. Even if you're at home, try to call people, and just it's really like even in school. Like in school, you don't have to be like they always think like the model student is someone who like stays quiet, always answers, like just stays there and answers questions when they think. But I think it's always like important. Just one thing for me is I'm always talking to people. Like sometimes like I know when to like dial it back when I need to like actually be quiet. But like one important thing is like maintain like your social life. Don't think that your academics is a bridge like between like it's bridging your social life. It can be a connection. It can lead to like your social life to flourish. So
Yeah. It seems like from what you're saying is you found the right group of people that are like-minded, that want to do the same things, because everyone wants to have fun. No one really enjoys sitting at home and studying all day and not leaving, not seeing sunlight or whatever. You find the right group of friends that are like-minded, that have the same goals, and study together, go out together, and just be together.
mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you define success? What's success for a 17-year-old? How do you look at it?
This is something that I don't have the answer to. I've always been like, that's like one really big thing I think about in my life is like what really is success. I know for a fact that success isn't defined by, just like getting your education and getting a job and making a lot of money. But I know that, as you said, I'm still 17. I don't know, like that's something like I'm hoping that like I'll find the answer to in college. But like at the moment, I don't really have a definition for success. I just know that by working hard, I'll somehow end up there.
Okay. So you're really not even thinking about that?
Not really.
Okay, I'll describe the accomplishment that you just got as a peak in your life. Now, let's just look at life as a graph, and like this is a high point. Some people get this very, very high point of getting accepted into Ivy League school, and they let that carry them, and they don't look for any other peaks.
They don't strive to be. Yeah, one really important thing is I think you always can strive to be a better person. I don't think, obviously I don't think getting into like Columbia is not the end of the road for me. There's still so much more I have to do with my life. Obviously, I do think that this is one of the peaks of my life, but I plan to, like keep going up on that graph, That's like one really big important thing for me is like, I don't want to lose what I find important. I don't want to lose any of my value. I don't want to lose my values. I want to still try to I don't like to see this as like I do think it's a great thing, but I don't like to look at it as like, oh, this is like the peak of my life. Because I know that I can always do more. You can always be better as a person. There's like never true perfection.
What are some of the topics that you like to talk about? What are some of the conversations that you like to have? Obviously, you're not going out trying to have conversations about chemistry.
Yeah.
To people, like you don't look like that type of guy after having the conversation for like 45 minutes now. It doesn't look like you just walk up to a person, hey, the atoms and the nucleus did this and that. You know what I mean? What are like conversations that you like to engage in, stuff that you like to look into in your free time?
A lot of people, I don't know why they think this, but they think that like I have no interests outside of school. I mean, I play video games with my friends. I like to talk about that with my friends. I genuinely like always just find like random things to talk about. It's like one of the things I find like that makes it really easy for me to talk to people is I just like go up to them and I'll start talking about like something random I had like that day. Or something I saw like online. Like it's always something different. I don't really have like one specific thing that I always talk about, but I try not to like steer conversations towards academics. I feel like that's kind of like
lame.
Yeah, I don't want to come across as shallow. I don't really like to make my whole life about school. I don't really like. I think it's a pretty big part of my life, but I don't like view it as a big part of my life.
Okay. See, there's like 4 million high school roughly around 4 million high school graduates in the country every year. When again it comes to a lot of them, there is no pressure beyond that point in getting into like a Wayne State or U of M Dearborn or whatever your local university is. But for you, the city of Dearborn posted that you got accepted, like insane support from the community. Everyone congratulating you, and that's the plus side of that. The downside is now all eyes are on you. Okay, we have a person that from within us that went into Ivy League, and now let's look at what Hassan's up to. That's a different type of pressure from the other 4 million people that graduated from high school. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I don't know. I find it kind of exciting, you know. To some degree, I think pressure is a great motivator. And I'm sure you guys will see in like the next couple months. I know my friends are gonna get into Ivy Leagues too, so like you'll see some more people get in it. I don't think all eyes are gonna be on me, so you know it's gonna be spread across a little bit. But I kind of like use it as like a motivation. You know, people are like looking at me and they see like great things for my future. So I don't really like want to let those people down.
Yeah. Do you wish that people didn't know?
Not really. I kind of find it fun. You know.
Yeah. It is fun. It's you call it like a dopamine hit. Like it's like a state of euphoria. Like, oh my God, everyone's congratulating me. Everyone thinks this is such a good accomplishment, and then when the dopamine starts to go down a little bit, and then your like everything's regulated, you're like, okay, but now I really have to go do the work.
Yeah, I do think that this was kind of, I do think it was something I needed. I'm being honest. I think it was like, at a time, especially in senior year, when you're working like the hardest you ever worked in your life, it was really good to get like, you know, see that acceptance and to show that like all the hard work that I've put in for the past 12 years of my life really paid off, you know? Obviously, you know, I don't expect it to be all easy from here. I think it only gets harder from here actually. But I mean, it's just like, it's a feeling that I'm going to remember. And I think that like, you know, through like continued success, that it's something that like I'll continue to feel, you know?
So it's like let's give Hassan his flowers moment, where you were recognized for all the hard work, because a lot of times when you are grinding through and you don't feel like studying and it's getting really difficult with those weighted classes, it's like, man, like, is it this even worth it? But then
it does like feel like that sometimes. It's just but like seeing, like I've had a lot of moments where, you know, you feel like, oh, like all your hard work has like finally paid off. You know, like some of it, you know, some small stuff like, you know, getting my report card back and seeing my parents happy. That's one like really big, you know, it's like really big plus side for me. Obviously there's that pressure to keep it like continual, to keep making people like, you know, trying to like make my parents proud and stuff. But I do think that it's just probably the best motivator I have.
How do those hard times look like for you? Like those when your mental health is really like struggling, like you're trying to push through, and like you just read something over and over again and you just can't process it anymore. Like how do those times look for you?
So yeah, one thing is I do like usually like I get sometimes a little lazy when like that stuff happens. I don't really have like the motivation to continue doing my work, but like that's the time where, you know, I have the people in my life around me to, you know, push me forward. I think that, like as I was saying before, you know, it's always really important to take breaks, even if even if it's like a short break. Like I'm studying for a test and I have the test the next day. Like it's good to take, like you might think like, oh, I need to study like every minute of this day to do good tomorrow. Like that's not going to get you anywhere. If you're not like learning, it's good. You could take like a 2-hour break, you know. I'll call my friends. I'll have a conversation with them, or like if I'm in school, you know, sometimes I'll like just have conversations with my teachers or the people around me. And that's kind of like a good like refresher for me. I try to take my mind off it for a little bit. One like really important thing is to know when to step back because if you're always like moving forward fast, it's like it's good to slow down and take like some time to yourself. I think it's like extremely important.
That might be a little difficult. I feel like just because there's a guilt aspect of when I used to study and there was a part that I wasn't processing, I'm like, if this question comes on the exam, I just won't answer it, or I'll just wing it, whatever, and I'll have 1 out of 4 chances of getting it right anyways. And let me just continue. In your position, you're trying to get into, like, you have a goal. You can't say, I don't care about this part.
Yeah.
You know, and then you said you take a step back and you relax. Is there guilt when you're having fun?
Because I know that ultimately, like, those are the moments I'm gonna look back on. I'm not gonna look back on like the times I'm like, oh, I'm sitting down studying or like reading a book. I know I'm gonna look back on the times I have fun. I think that anything you do for fun, I think if it's for fun, I don't think it's a waste of time. Like if you're truly enjoying it.
What's your idea of fun? What's your version of fun?
It's a lot of different versions of fun. My main thing is like, just like one big thing is, just driving around with my friends. I get to interact with people. Interacting with people is like probably the biggest aspect of my life. I was saying, I love to talk to people all the time. It's like, especially when I get to talk to people I like, I get to talk to my friends and see how, like how they've been up to. I get to tell them how I've been up to. Like those are like those types of hangouts are the ones I find most enjoyable.
Okay.
Like,
So not like one specific activity that you like to do.
not really. Like, I mean, like I'll just go out, like get dinner with my friends or something. I mean, like today, I know I'm going to go like snowboarding with my friends, something I've never tried before. I don't really think it's going to be fun because of the activity. I think it's going to be fun because I'm going with like my friends.
What's your ideal study environment?
This is, I just want to be like, to be honest, surrounded by people. A lot of people like say like, oh, it needs to be like quiet, secluded area. For me, like, I don't know, the kind of stuff like drives me insane. I don't want to be like in a room by myself. Like it's all quiet. That's why I usually go to like the library at U of M. They have like a social floor. It's like, even if I'm by myself, there's like voices around me. It's like it's lively. They have like their 3rd and 4th floor that are like silent for studying. Like I don't know, when I go there, I start like thinking like, yo, what am I doing up here, man? Like this is like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Is there a dream that you have that you might have put aside for academia?
No, I don't think I. No, I wouldn't say so.
You're contemplating.
I was trying to see like if there's any other answer, but I don't really think. No, I don't really have like any regrets with going.
Not regrets, but
Yeah.
you know how like growing up or like coming up, you're like, I have these career choices. I either want to become a doctor, and this is obviously early on before you commit to like, let me get this 5.0, let me get accepted to Columbia. You think, I either want to become a doctor, or maybe I have this idea for this product or this business, or maybe I want to go that route. I want to be I gave a little presentation at Dearborn High a couple months ago, and when I asked the teacher what her students want to become when they come older, a lot of them were like business owners, they want to open restaurants, food trucks, things of that nature. So it was just, so maybe you had a similar like, oh, this would sound fun. You're social, you like interacting with people. It sounds like a lot of good friends. You're surrounded by a lot of good friends. So maybe I can open this with my friends, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I get that. Like, those like little tiny things that like I always think about. You think about those sometimes, but I mean, it's yeah. I get what you're saying. Like, people always think like, oh, like what if I like open a restaurant with my friends? Like, oh, like me and my friends, sometimes we talk about like tiny stuff, like tiny business ideas like that. But I mean, I don't look back at them with like, I don't look back at it like resenting academics for taking me away from that. I just, think of them as quick little, thoughts that I had. One like really big thing about me is I never really took time to explore a lot of career options. That's like one thing I don't really like. You can't really ask me about a lot of types of jobs. I wouldn't really know a lot about it. I do think that college is gonna change that. You know, in college, you know, you're trying to find out what you want to do with your life. So that's something maybe like for the future, but at the moment, not really.
So now the plan is to become a doctor, but if something happened and you felt like you wanted to change that path, you're open to it.
100%.
Okay.
I'm ultimately I'm just looking for stuff that's I'm not gonna be miserable, and I don't want to like sit in a place and be miserable my whole day, you know, doing something that I never really wanted to do. But I truly do think that being a doctor would be a great option for me. But I'm always like open to exploring other career options, see like maybe is there like one really true fit for me.
When you get accepted to a school like Columbia, do you think about like niche, maybe specialties that are only available? Is it like that where like there's certain specialties that are only available, for example, at Columbia?
100%.
Are there stuff like that?
I think the biggest thing that's like extremely underrated from going to the universities are like the connections you'll make, the networking opportunities. Because obviously you're going to have like these unmatched, unparalleled like academics, and I'm going to have like these opportunities to do research at some of the greatest institutes in the world. But like at the end of the day, connections and networking are like what make you like successful. And I think that going to an Ivy League, you're going to meet a lot of people that, you know, like most people that do come out from these Ivy Leagues end up being like, you know, extremely like successful in their careers. And I think that being able to meet like these types of people, like through like a kind of like an alumni network, or even just a network to like professors or friends that you meet along the way, I think that's like the biggest advantage to an Ivy League. I don't really think it's obviously you can get an education anywhere. You can. I don't think you can go to U of M Dearborn and Wayne State and like HFC and be successful. There's no like question about that. But I do think that the networking opportunities and the connections you were able to make at an Ivy League institution are what really like, make them special.
I was really asking more about like a niche specialty, like a specific, like maybe a specific type of engineering, or like I don't know, like with even with med, like there's some very specialty doctors. I just wonder if because you get accepted to Columbia, you think I want to go for this like very niche specialty, and I take advantage of me being at Columbia.
That was one thing. So I know Columbia does have one of the top medical schools. I mean, my goal in the medical field I was thinking like anesthesia. I thought I found that career kind of interesting. You get to like talk to a lot of people, talk to the patients a lot, and you also get to like talk a lot with your coworkers. That's like one really big thing for me. I don't really think of like each college of having like one niche specific thing, because I do think that you could do whatever you want at any college you want. I mean, one thing I did consider is like, oh, if I went to Harvard, like I'll go to Harvard Law, you know, because Harvard Law School is like one of the like probably the top like law school in the world. And I don't know, I never ended up going to Harvard, but that was like one thing. Like I don't really know at Columbia what their little niche thing is yet, but maybe if I find it out, then something I'll pursue.
Okay. So I like how really open you are with the choice that you're going to make. Like you don't mind going into Harvard Law if
Not at all.
Okay. I think that's good because you're kind of very flexible, you know? You're going to go with the flow. You're going to land on whatever actually interests you. You're not too adamant. No, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor. You can just kind of have fun in that experience, and at one point, if you just float around, you're going to land in the spot that suits you.
100%. That's like the big thing, because obviously there's doctors out there who, you know, they stuck to their mindset. They're like, oh, I'm 100% going to be a doctor. And like they stuck to it, and then they don't like it. And now like, look at them, like they're living the rest of their lives probably like, okay, sure, you have money, but you're miserable. Like it's not really
A lot.
You know, there's a lot of people like that, and I don't think that's not the life I want to live.
What's one thing that we didn't talk about today that you think we should have?
Can I do like a quick shout out to like my friends?
You want to shout out your friends?
Yeah, so, especially and my teachers, especially like, you were talking to Miss Shami. She was able to get me, she got me onto this podcast today. I have a lot of my friends, like, my friends Ayman, Alatar, or Kashish, Dia, Daniel, a lot of them. Hamza, I think, I don't want to forget anyone. Yusuf, Malik, I'm not going to forget anyone,
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to Dearborn a lot.
It's good that these friends aren't looking at you enviously. They're working with you.
My friends were like, oh, this is one thing. So my reaction to getting in, everyone told me it was like really boring. I was like, oh, I got in. Like, I didn't have like, your average like, oh my God. I didn't start screaming. I didn't start crying. I was like, oh, I got in. And I called my friends. I'm like, yeah, I got into Columbia, guys. And my friends started screaming. They're like, oh my God, you got in. Like, my friends were like extremely happy for me. That's like one thing I was so grateful for. Nobody is like really envious. I had a lot of people around me just, be, a lot of people just like, they wanted me to, like, they want me to go. They were like, oh, like, this is like a great opportunity for you. Like, just don't forget us.
Yeah, no, I really hope that it's going to be very prosperous for you. I really hope that you really land on something that you love to do, and you become as successful as you can be. And inshallah, in a couple years, when you're done, I'm really interested on knowing how that experience was hands-on. So maybe we'll have another conversation in a few years when you're done.
Inshallah.
All right. Thank you, Hassan.